All right, let's take a little trip back in time. We're going to 1945 to meet a guy who was a true visionary. I mean, this is a man who, right as the atomic age was dawning, somehow managed to sketch out a blueprint for the world we live in right now.
I mean, that sounds kind of impossible, right? Think about 1945. We're talking vacuum tubes and punch cards. So here's the big question for today. Could someone from that era really predict our digital world? The personal computer, the internet, that absolute fire hose of information we're all trying to drink from every single day? Well, as you're about to see, the answer is a shocking yes. So who is this guy? His name is Vannevar Bush. Now, during World War II, he was basically America's top science guy, the person in charge of mobilizing thousands of scientists for the war effort. A huge deal. But when the war started winding down, he didn't just kick back. His brilliant mind pivoted to two just massive peacetime problems. First, how in the world do we manage all the knowledge we've already got? And second, how do we create the new knowledge we're going to need for the future?
And this quote from him just nails his #1 concern. Think about it. Even way back in 1945, he saw a huge problem on the horizon. The sheer volume of scientific research was exploding. Knowledge was being created so fast that scientists couldn't even keep up with what their colleagues were doing. It was becoming, well, almost useless. He literally called it an information explosion.
Okay, so how do you even begin to fix a problem like that? Well, Bush's first big idea came in this now famous essay called As We May Think. And in it, he didn't just complain about the problem of accessing knowledge, he came up with a totally radical new way to think about the whole thing. He basically said, hey, our tools are the problem. The way we were storing information was totally artificial, filing everything alphabetically or numerically in these super rigid categories. But that's not how our brains work, is it? Our minds work by association. One thought just kind of leads to the next, creating this amazing web of interconnected trails. So Bush asked the million-dollar question, why can't our machines work like that too? And that incredible leap of imagination led him to dream up a theoretical machine to do just that. He called it the Memex. It's kind of a mashup of the words memory and index. Now, to be clear, the Memex was never actually built. It was a purely conceptual device. But oh man, the idea behind it was about to change absolutely everything. So what was this thing? Well, I want you to picture a desk. But this isn't just any desk. It's a device where you could store your entire personal library. Every book you own, every record, all your notes and letters, everything, stored on microfilm. You could pull up any document, like instantly. And get this, you could even add your own notes and scribbles right on top of the projected image. It was basically a private, super-powered library right at your fingertips. But, the storage was cool, but it wasn't the real magic. The secret sauce, the truly revolutionary part, was this idea he called associative indexing. Here's how it worked. A user could take any two items in their Memex, say a page from a book and a personal note, and bam, link them together. That link would create what Bush called a trail. It was a brand new way of organizing information, not by some dusty old category, but by connection and context, by how ideas relate to each other.
Let me walk you through an example Bush himself used because it makes it super clear. So imagine a researcher is studying why the Turkish bow was better than the English longbow. They start pulling up articles and books, linking them together into a main trail. But then they get curious about the physics of it all and create a little side trail on elasticity. Now fast forward a few months, they're talking to someone about something totally different, like resistance to new technology, and they can instantly pull up that entire chain of thought. And here's the kicker. They could copy the whole trail and just give it to a friend to load into their Memex. Does that sound at all familiar? Because yeah, that is the fundamental concept of the hyper.
And honestly, it gets even crazier. Bush didn't just stop at the technology. He predicted this new way of linking information would spawn an entirely new profession. He called them trailblazers. These would be people who just delight in finding interesting connections and creating useful paths through this enormous sea of information for the rest of us to follow. I mean, he was basically describing bloggers, YouTubers, digital curators, influencers, all the way back in 1945. It's just wild. Okay, so as if basically predicting the World Wide Web wasn't enough for one lifetime, Bush had a second, and you could argue equally massive vision. This one wasn't about how we access knowledge that's already out there. This was about how we, as a country, should go about creating new knowledge. And this was all laid out in a report he wrote for the president called Science: The Endless Frontier. Just take a look at this. You can see this absolutely colossal spike in government-funded research during the war. I mean, it's just a vertical line. Science had been put on a war footing to build weapons. So Bush's big question was, what now? What happens when the war is over? Do we just let all of this incredible scientific brainpower and infrastructure just wither on the vine? Or do we redirect it to a new, peaceful, national purpose?
His answer was pretty radical for the time. He straight up argued that the federal government had a new responsibility. It needed to become the main funder, the primary patron of basic scientific research. And we're not just talking about research for new weapons or specific products for companies. We're talking about that deep, curiosity-driven science, the kind of research that just expands the boundaries of what we know as a species.
So why should the government foot the bill for this? Well, Bush made a really powerful case. His pitch was that public funding was absolutely essential for three big things: winning the war against disease, making sure the country stayed secure in a new world, and, this is a big one, fueling the economy with new products and jobs. He called basic research the pacemaker of technological progress. It's like the source, the wellspring, from which all new industries and jobs would eventually flow.
But here's what's really smart about his thinking. He wasn't some science-at-all-costs guy. He had this incredible foresight to warn against building a system that only valued the natural sciences. He knew that for a nation to be truly healthy, you needed balance. He said it would be folly to boost science at the expense of the humanities and social sciences.
All right, so you've got this grand plan to fund all this amazing research, but that brings up another huge question, right? Who's actually going to do all this science? Where are we going to find the next generation of great researchers?
Bush's report included data to answer that question, and honestly, it is just staggering. Look at this table. It shows the chances of a top high school grad going to college based on what their parents earned. If your family made over $5,000 a year, you were pretty much guaranteed to go. But if your family made less than $500, only about 20% of the best and brightest students even got a shot. The message couldn't be clearer. The country was just throwing away its most precious resource, raw human talent.
And his solution to this was just as clear and just as powerful. He proposed creating a national program of scholarships and fellowships. The idea was simple, but it was totally revolutionary for its time. Find the smartest young people in the entire country, no matter where they came from or how much money their family had, and pay for their education in science. The only thing that should matter, he argued, was talent, period.
So, let's put this all together. You've got these two grand visions from 1945. One for organizing the knowledge we have, and one for creating the knowledge we need. And what's just incredible when you step back is seeing how directly that blueprint from decades ago shaped the world you and I are living in, right now.
I mean, the lines you can draw from his vision to our reality today are just undeniable. His theoretical memex, that's the personal computer on the World Wide Web. His associative trails, those are the hyperlinks we all click on billions of times a day. His trailblazers, well, those are today's bloggers, curators, and influencers. And that National Research Foundation he proposed? Well, that led directly to the creation of the National Science Foundation, or the NSF, in 1950. And ever since, the NSF has been the engine funding decades of basic research that has fueled so much of our innovation. Everything from the early development of the internet itself to huge breakthroughs in medicine. It's the living, breathing, institutional legacy of his report.
And then there's the other side of his legacy, the conceptual one, and it's just as profound. The core idea of the World Wide Web, this web of nonlinear linked information that lets us jump from idea to idea. You can trace its conceptual DNA right back to that unbuilt memex. In fact, the actual pioneers of the internet and personal computing, people like Douglas Engelbart, who invented the mouse, and Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the web, they all pointed back to Bush's 1945 essay as a key inspiration.
But for all his optimism, Bush ended his famous essay with a really sobering warning. It's this quote right here. He saw the incredible power that this new way of accessing information would give us, but he also saw the danger. He was genuinely worried that we, as a species, might not develop the wisdom fast enough to wield this powerful tool for our own good. And really, that brings us right back to today and leaves us with the final big question. We did it. We built the world that Vannevar Bush imagined. We have the memex in our pockets and on our desks. We have the engine of scientific research that he designed. We followed the blueprint. So the question that he was asking back in 1945 is maybe more urgent now than it's ever been. Are we using it wisely?